That's right, people. How you doing tonight? I hope everything's going really well. Um, you know what? It's time to jam. It's that time of the week again. The very first show of 2021. I know for everyone, 2020 was a massive, weird year. This is the best way of putting it. It's given a lot of challenges, but one of the biggest areas that was challenged was education. We saw so many things take place, and today I'm proudly joined by a good friend of mine. His name is Josh Wallis, and he's a teacher. And more importantly, we're going to be looking at today many things to help parents, pupils, and other teachers have that little bit of confidence that 2021 is going to go well for academically for all the students out there, regardless of what government policy is going to be doing. We know that there's challenges as well. So Josh is going to give his experience and his wisdom to help out everyone. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself and say hello to everyone?
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on, Hadi. Totally agree with what you just said. Here to answer any questions that people have about education, how it's changing, how it's developing, how it's adapting to the current climate and situation with the coronavirus, and what that means for your school, what that means for you as a parent, what that means for your children, and in terms of business, what that means for what the future of pupils coming out of school education, college, university, what that will look like for you in terms of employability and the quality of what you're going to get from picking somebody with a degree from here or A levels from there, that kind of thing, for example.
And all the time, I'm going to be monitoring all your questions that'll be coming in on here. So I'll be following the live stream and hopefully answering all your questions. If you got a question, please give us a like, give us a love, give us something, even, an angry face if you think I'm talking too much. But, this is it. This is here to help you. Let us know if you're watching this live on the replay. I know Facebook Live has had some real issues over recent times as they've done a lot of updates on Facebook, and that's created some massive issues when I've been trying to do Facebook Lives and try and monitor comments. So feel free, drop something in. Let me know that you are watching, and even if you do watch this on the replay, we are always here to answer your questions. This is what it's all about. So, Josh, let's get started. Tell us more about yourself. What you're a teacher. What is your subject? And what makes you institution?
That's a really good question, Hadi. So predominantly I took up teaching when I left sixth form. I took some sort of part-time roles doing some technician work, which is, in terms of the subject that I teach, which is PE, predominantly was based around getting kit ready, getting lessons organized and things like that, because unlike a lesson in a classroom where you just switch the board on, in terms of PE there tends to be a little bit more in terms of getting the ground ready, getting cones, balls, all that kind of stuff, whatever you need equipment wise. That was my original job. From that, I already knew I wanted to teach. It's always been a passion of mine. I think the idea of passing on knowledge has always been the key motivator for me, at least. So from that point onwards, I've had various roles in various schools, from head of department. I've been second in department with various sports. I've been a head of year, been a head of house. I've had lots of sort of mid managerial roles, and then recently left my current role, and I've been doing some supply in and around London as and when that's needed. Although in the current circumstances that is a little bit rare. But that's all right. Things keep ticking by. People like me just keep on going, and hopefully when we're all out of this, or at least the school system is in a better position, then I might look for something permanent again, local to where I am.
Which is, again, so that's given a lot of people how can I put this? You got a wide range of experience, and
Absolutely.
you are a lifelong teacher. It's vocational for you, as opposed to just being a job.
Yeah, and I think it comes to one of those things. Again, you asked me what subjects I teach. I predominantly teach PE. I train to teach PE, but as with a lot of teachers, when times are tough, when people move in different roles in different schools, I've taught a bit of geography, a bit of maths, a bit of English. I've done all sorts, drama, you name it. I've probably taught it to some degree. I was head of computing in a school. I've done a bit of everything, really. I think depending on your qualification, of which mine is general. I'm qualified to teach any secondary or primary subject. So at least for me, I know what I'm delivering is quality, even if I don't necessarily know the topic area that much. I can still like upskill you and improve your knowledge.
I mean, for me, what I've always seen teaching as is the next natural evolution of humanity. You know,
Yep.
you learn a certain thing, you get to a certain level,
Yep.
you've become competent at it, you want to pass that knowledge on. You know,
Yeah,
and that's what lifelong teachers do. You know, they
absolutely.
hence why it's a vocation for them. So right now we're seeing a lot more classes which are being taught at home,
Yes.
online. You got access to Microsoft Teams. Some schools are using Teams, some schools are using Slack, or some of these
Yep.
other programs which are out there. Are you finding motivation going downhill because of factors like self-learning? Is really the way we were looking at it.
Ooh,
It's not an interactive environment in the sense of
yeah.
you got more people in one area. It's not a social environment. You are literally just communicating via this.
Yeah, so I suppose there's 2 points to that. There's initially the student and then the teacher's perspective, and then there's the self-learning side. So if I start with the sort of student-teacher perspective,
Yeah.
Speaking to students or people that have kids from families in my area that go out on a socially distanced walk, so I can catch up on what they've been up to. From a kid's perspective, it's really tough. Some live and breathe it because their attitude to learning is that they're willing to just get involved and go for it. So whatever circumstances you put them in, classroom, on a computer, whatever it is, they will just thrive, and they are actively encouraged at the opportunity to learn. So they've got a live lesson, they engage with it, they take part, they do the work at home, they submit it like they're supposed to. And then there's the other student who would naturally switch off in a classroom, who's then going, well, this is the perfect opportunity. Oh, I'm really sorry, my camera doesn't work, my microphone doesn't work, my internet's down for the day. I can just, take a breezy attitude to this. And really, there's no detention, there's no come back to it. There's just people just sat there. Yeah, they've got every right to do it, and they do, and they will take advantage of that system. And unfortunately, there's not a lot the teacher can do. So from the teacher's perspective, then, but the other side where a lot of teachers I'm talking to, some are really motivated by being able to at least go live and deliver some lessons to the students, even if it is from their home. And then others who have a class of 30 who are supposed to be signed up to Microsoft Teams, and then they'll go on their live lesson and they'll have 4 students because the other 26 can't be bothered. And they've put 2 or 3 hours into planning a really enjoyable and, as best can be, interactive lesson for the students, and then 4 of them turn up. And in terms of a teacher's side, that is so demoralizing and can be really difficult to go, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Rather than watching EastEnders and stuff, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to put an extra half an hour, 40 minutes into my lesson to make it great. And then you go online and there's 3 kids and they don't care. That's really tough. And then in terms of the self-learning side, the kids that are using the computer, that's great, because when you go into the world of work, the chances are so many jobs nowadays, it must be in the 60-70% region, are computer based, or at least have computer skills. So picking this stuff up now is great for them, because that's really, really useful skills that they otherwise wouldn't have had. This whole remote learning and stuff is all new to them, so that's really beneficial. But the human interaction side of actually meeting your peers and getting on with people is so removed. There's going to be a lot of students out there who are suffering from things where they're struggling in terms of communication skills with their peers and things like that. And when they do reconnect back at school, it's going to be a really tough process. It's going to be a sort of gradual graph of getting back into the way that things are. So there's peaks and troughs with everything, and I think people just have to make the best of the situation we're in. Unfortunately, moaning about it online is not going to get you very far, but this is the world we live in. People have to take what they can get. I think there's a lot of schools trying a lot of new things out there just to give students the opportunities, and I rate that. I do rate that.
And again, this is where I'm going to get a little bit political, but when you get something like, by the way, Ben Walker says hi, guys. So, hey, Ben, thanks for joining us. Feel free to ask any kind of questions, and I'm glad to see that the comment section is working. That's the most important thing.
Good stuff.
again, you know, if I take me as an example, and I love talking about me because I'm my own favorite person.
Absolutely.
But I was not a grade student. I wasn't even a B or a C grade student. I was an E grade student,
Okay.
and that was because I wasn't mature enough to handle the way I had to learn at the time and all the rest of it. It wasn't
Hmm.
until GCSE 17s that, you know, the maturity factor kicked in and the learning
Yeah.
factor kicked in, and then everything became a lot more stronger and stable.
Hmm.
Um, but the motivation factor is the big thing, you know, because it is demoralizing. And what you've also seen, you know, which is really good now, where teachers are able to give the grades based upon, you know, the student's attitude, willingness to learn, participation. Those are wonderful. The thing that had always been bugging me was the learning curve, and that got proved last year in August when the
Yeah.
figures came out, because they put in so many different factors, such as where they're based, you know, a predicted grade, you know, deducting it by two grades down.
Yep.
You know, there's so many students throughout our entire history that will have suffered from these kinds of prejudices that are
Yep.
put into the computer algorithms. So, you know, when it, right now, teachers are going to be looked at very harshly by the media. They're going to be looked at harshly by the politicians. I don't envy you guys, because again, you're going to be given the grades.
Yep.
You know, so for other teachers who are out there who are going to be watching this and thinking, okay, right, well, you know what? How am I going to cope with these kinds of things? Being a former head of a department, how would you advise and guide them to say, look, you know, don't worry about this?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think a lot of students, I mean, so again, having spoken to students in my area that I know, there's some that have gone with the attitude of, oh, you know what? If my teacher's decided my grade, well, their apple that I might normally give them at Christmas might suddenly become a very nice pen or something like that. Well, I'm
Mm.
feeling more generous. I'm going to give the teacher more of my time. I might email them and ask if there's any more work I can do. When
Mm.
suddenly they realize that actually the teacher, yeah, will pretty much be deciding their grade. Now, I think that's the bit where there's a bit of a maybe a miscommunication, or again a media kind of
Yeah.
attitude towards something where the teacher is deciding my grade. No, the teacher isn't deciding your grade realistically at all. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is instead of the GCSE assessment, a lot of schools will just be doing a sort of continual assessment system where they're just constantly checking where you're at, sort of where your levels are at, and then you'll get an average. Your teacher will give you an average. So the average will be, say you were getting B's in pretty much everything up to now, well, then you're probably going to walk away with a B. That's not the teacher deciding that you've got a B. They're not going to,
Mm.
you know, their hand in a lucky bag and go, oh, how do you got a B? It's going to be a case of, you know, if this is your level, well, then that's what you're going to get. And I think to point the finger at a teacher and go, well, you decided my son got a C, and actually I think my son is an A student. Well, that's lovely, you think your son is an A student, but if I look at all this work over the last 2 years while your son's been doing GCSE English, actually these all say C, because that's where your son is at.
Yeah.
So it's not me going, oh, I think your son's a C. Actually, it's all of this evidence that I have gathered says that this is where you're at. I think the reality for students more likely is that if they were going, oh, I can't be bothered with this online learning, etc., they've, you know, whatever, it's not a big deal, and then suddenly they've gone, oh yeah, the teacher is going to decide your grade. Suddenly they're logging back in. All the year
Yeah.
11s are suddenly logging back in. The year 13s are online. Oh, let's have a look. Of course they are, because the reality is if you're not engaging with the work now, and this is now from this point onwards is leading up to what would be your exams, all of this work is going to be graded towards where you eventually end up.
Mm. Yeah, and again, it's a culture shock. I'm going to say this, you know, as a parent, it is a culture shock to many parents who are out there.
Yeah.
One of the biggest concerns is, okay, our kids are going to be learning from home. They're going to be independently learning,
Hmm.
because they have to actually have that laptop to begin with, force themselves to go into a lesson. They're at home, which isn't which is generally as an environment a place where people come to relax,
Yeah.
you know, as opposed to actually do work. Unless you know, you have a home office or base yourself from home, um, you really are. This is where you're relaxing. You get away from work.
Yeah.
So, for them to then change that sort of, switch their mindset from a young age of 16, it is a massive impact, and younger, 16, 15, 14, 13, even at the primary school kids, they're also going to be missing out, especially younger kids, on missing out on a lot of socialization processes, which happen through interactivity. But that also flips onto key workers as well. So delivery drivers, warehouse work, delivery drivers, government workers, doctors, nurses, even teaching, how are those kids, because those kids are going to be in school.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Again, I think don't want to get too political, but where the government has allowed schools to make their own independent decisions about what this current process looks like for their school. I mean, obviously, certain schools have access to hundreds of laptops. Certain schools have access to no laptops. So there's going to be a different approach from the two schools initially there, because obviously there's a difference in what they can offer. But because there's no unilateral kind of decision as to what this learning looks like during this period, it means that for example, your current explanation of kids missing out on social skills, kids missing out on this, that, and the other, some schools have gone, well, our approach to key workers is we'll get all the key worker children and we'll put them in this room, and then we'll put them all in front of a computer, and what they would be doing at online learning at home, they will be doing from the school. That's the only difference. That's what I having spoken to them, those teachers that I know, that is the majority of what's being done. It will be support staff, so that's your LSAs, your TAs, that will be monitoring that room. The student is sat in front of a computer or laptop, and they are taking part in the online learning that all the other students are. Because if they were to separate themselves from that as well, then say the teacher is with the online class, well, actually, this student that's come into school is at a disadvantage. So the majority of them are coming in, they're being led to a computer and sat down there. They get their break time, they get their lunch time, and it's just the most robotic environment where they just constantly, back to the computer again. Same computer I was at yesterday. Yeah. Oh, here we go again, online, brilliant. And for them, I feel hard. It's even harder work, because realistically, they are sat there with people they want to talk to, want to play with at break time. They're in the environment. They're probably wearing their school uniform, and they can't get any of the fun, normal activities that you would do. You just got to, back to my online learning, back to my online learning. I mean, it would, again, flip side of that would be a massive unfairness, should we say, if they were having great lessons and then all the students that had, were at home weren't. So I do understand why it has to be a balance, and I'm not saying that my opinion is it should be one way or the other, but currently that is what is being offered in the majority of places. Again, that links to so say, for example, I know a couple of schools that are doing all of their lessons are now online. So where you would sit period 1, period 2, period 3, say you've got 5 periods in a day, all of those 5 periods you will see your online live teacher and you will take part. Whereas some schools are going, well, actually, that's really hard for the teacher. That's really unfair. So let's say they've got 4 lessons in a week. Actually, 1 or 2 of them will be live, and the other 2 will just have work for you to do during that lesson period, and you won't actually interact with the teacher like you normally would. So again, there's immediately a disparity between the two. You go to this school where all of your lessons are live, and you get to see your teacher and interact with the other students and provide answers, etc. You don't, therefore you get 1 or 2. Do you know what I mean? And that's already a separation there from what I personally think should be across the board. All your lessons are live, or 50% of your lessons are live, or whatever it is. I think everyone should be in the same position.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I hear it. It has to be a universal standard.
Absolutely.
And again, unfortunately, it's just not the case when it comes to education. No. Area, schools, resources, they all define, they all contribute as factors to how well a person will progress from that particular school. But that is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, guys, if you're watching this live right now and enjoying this, please let us know that you like this. If you have any questions, feel free, pop something on here. You know, we want to help you. And again, Josh has taken his time out to provide this wonderful information. And we, the whole point is doing these lives is not just, you know, adding extra benefit for me, it's for you as being part of the, you know, part of the group. So take advantage. You know, all of our guests when they come on, take advantage. You know, even if it's on the replay and you're watching on the replay, ask a question, leave that comment on there. Josh will be more than happy to answer it.
Very much so.
Yeah. So, Josh, now we're looking at the education system. You know, in terms of key workers, we've addressed that. We've addressed um, school children, parents to a certain degree, especially, you know, parents who think that their children are working.
Yep.
What about teachers? Because this is definitely going to have a huge impact upon the teachers' mental health. You know, because teachers naturally are sociable animals. You know, they want to be in an environment where they can see people progressing. They, you know, they're much more kinetic based teaching as opposed to, you know, verbal, you know, visual, that
Yep.
kind of thing. They combine it all together to make sure that they know if they're effective at what they're teaching. And then to suddenly go to maybe, you know, we'll do it from this sort of platform where I
Yep.
can't see anyone. Maybe it's a Zoom call
Mm-hmm.
or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is, or a playback on a video. It must be, you know, how does that affect teachers' health, mental health?
You know, it's an interesting one. So, having spoken again to a lot of my friends who are in permanent roles, so they are actually teaching on Teams or they are delivering whatever it is, compared to myself, who's doing some sort of limited tutoring and things like that. The day-to-day reality of it is extremely draining. Again, a lot of teachers go into teaching for a lot of the reasons you just said. So that interactivity, the excitement of a new day, every day is different. Well, it's not at the moment. It's really not. And a lot of teachers are not used to staring at a screen for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at somebody like myself, so I predominantly teach PE. A lot of mine is active. I'm outside, teaching all that kind of stuff. To suddenly go, okay, well, everything you're going to do now is on online. Well, that doesn't really work for me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I'm hesitant to say it's affected sort of things like my general fitness, you know, eating habits, sleep, all that kind of thing. They're all affected
Yeah.
by the changes in circumstance, changes in routine, all these kind of things. And to read some of the things that I have read online from various media outlets, sort of popular ones as well, saying this, that, and the others about teachers and, you know, lazy and they should be in doing this and they should be in doing that. It
Yeah, the
blows my
traditional
mind.
right
It blows
wing
my mind.
yeah.
If you look at the first lockdown, the initial lockdown that we had beginning of last year, so sort of March time, um, there the the stricter lockdown that we had, where literally nothing was open,
Yeah.
nothing was open except for a few bits. The few bits that were open, one of the main ones was schools. They didn't shut
No.
initially. They didn't shut, and the key, even if they did shut, the key workers were always in there.
Yeah.
The key workers, students were always in there. There was always teachers were teaching online from home. There's always something going on. The teachers haven't stopped. We
No.
haven't had a break. So many teachers I know worked solidly throughout the summer period trying to plan for, I mean, what eventualities they had no idea, trying to get lessons ready, online lessons, some face to face. A lot of teachers I know plan 6 months in advance. So they have a lot of their lessons planned out as if they were going to deliver them in the classroom. And suddenly that's been flipped. And now all of the hard work that I put in the summer, planning all these lessons, is now I need to somehow convert them overnight into an online lesson that's as good to make sure my students aren't getting a raw deal. Um, there's an unbelievable amount of pressure on teachers at the moment in the current climate, and to read such negative comments is mind blowing, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it doesn't help. It doesn't help. I know, from a personal point of view, I've struggled
mm,
like with mental health issues and things through this period. Not anything particularly severe, but the beginning symptoms of some of the ones that maybe are a bit more severe. And it's really difficult because even even if you are struggling and you're not necessarily a teacher, you're in any environment, the lack of social interaction, talking to people, saying, "Oh, I am struggling at the moment," or even with students and stuff, students would always come to me and say, "Oh, I'm having a bad day. Can you talk to me about this? Can you talk to me about that?" Or someone said this to me. Can you talk to me? Nothing. You get absolutely nothing now. It's completely. You're on your own, cold turkey. If you haven't got a really good social network of people that you can reach out to and talk to and stuff, well, you're on your own. You're on your own. Schools can only do so much from afar. And in terms of people in general, there's a struggle for people out there that don't have friends that will message you out the blue and go, "How are you doing? Are you all right? How are you? Have you got some bits in the diary? I'll go on a socially distanced walk with you." That kind of thing, if you see what I mean.
I do. Again, when the first lockdown happened, again, I did reach out. I made sure I reached out once every, couple of weeks just to see how people were doing, because I've known, again, quite a few of our mutual friend groups, will have that sort of, I don't want to say depression or,
Yep.
but they do have something where they need that social interaction,
Yeah.
and when they're all isolated by themselves, well, having been in that environment, when you're working in an office environment where
Yeah.
you're sitting down 6 hours a day in front of a computer screen or in a cubicle, it can be demotivating. Your mind does wander. Or if you've worked in a supermarket on a checkout and it's dead, you're left with your thoughts, and of course,
Yeah.
your thoughts can wander to really bad places. So I understand what can happen, and then that's why I was reaching out to people like yourself, just to make sure you was okay, and some of our other mutual friends. It's, again, some people wanted to respond and
Yep.
others didn't, and that's absolutely fine, because again, each person at their own pace. But when it's someone like a teacher that is being attacked on multiple levels,
Mm.
you have it from the parents, you have it from your regulation, the is it the education regulatory governing boards?
We have a few equivalents to that. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got that, and then you've got the politicians that are setting down things.
Mm.
You've got the Department of Education. You've got Ofsted. It becomes trying after a period of time,
Yep.
and that's why we've seen such a massive you know, over the years, you haven't seen an influx of teachers. You've seen an outgoing of teachers leaving the profession.
Yep.
Why would they stay in a profession when they're constantly getting barraged, and they're not earning that kind of money?
Yeah, I mean the turnout for teachers now so obviously when you qualify, you have to do a qualification year,
Yeah.
and then you are immediately going to something called an NQT year, which is your
Mhm.
newly qualified teacher. Everyone has to complete that, and again, you're assessed against your teaching. But the turnout rate from that, I believe, I'm plucking figures out of my head,
Mm.
but I believe the turnout is I think 2 out of 5 drop out during
Okay.
the NQT year, or prior to the first 5
Yeah.
years of teaching. So it's not that we're losing teachers that have been there a long time.
Mm.
It's we're losing people that are coming into it and going, actually, this is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And I agree with the points that you just made. We are sometimes teachers get a really bad rep. All these holidays, all this guaranteed work, blah 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 blah. There is a lot of stick out there for teachers, and I'm not going to sit here and say some of it isn't deserved.
Mm.
There are a lot of teachers that are very privileged
Yeah.
and have um, fantastic opportunities and things. But then there are people like myself and a number of my colleagues and friends that I've worked with previously who are vocational teachers who, I took up teaching not because I thought I was going to make millions of pounds or because I'm going to somehow go on lush holidays to wherever I want to go. I took it up because I enjoy it. I think it makes a difference, a positive difference in general to society. And you know what, the pay in terms of money, it's enough to live on. And
Mm.
that's what I needed. I don't have any crazy ambitions to do anything particularly outlandish. I'm here to make a difference, make a positive impact with my life on other people's lives.
Mm.
And then, yeah, if I can live a great life from that, well, that's fantastic. Life isn't all necessarily about money, or at least it's not for me.
No, I mean, again, I got a slightly different philosophy on money, which is that we need it, We
Yeah.
do need it, like we need air because of the way we live at the moment. If there was no
Absolutely.
money, there would be another way of bartering.
Yes.
It's just the method that we've got currently.
Mhm.
And
I think,
again, I've explored that in previous ones when we looked at Bitcoin.
yeah,
Um,
that's a fair point.
Again, the thing that you touched on was about IT, and maybe 60 or 70%,
Mhm.
of the workforce. Actually, it's more 90% of the workforce.
Uh,
Very, very few jobs require no IT skills
yeah,
whatsoever.
no, you're right.
Everything out there requires some form of IT now, such as either if you're even in business, you're doing invoicing. We're looking at social
Mhm.
media as becoming a new platform of getting
Yep.
in business and making business contacts. There's so many things which are out there. So it's gradually replacing a lot of social skills because I've seen it. I've seen, again, you just go on social media on Facebook and look at some of the kids who are out there. When they're talking, they talk like they're texting,
Yes.
and rather than in full length words, they're shortening it. And I think that's going to be a real challenge for a lot of the employers in the future. But I think
Yeah.
whereas the teachers can still communicate, it's I don't know where you feel the future is going to be for the education sector right now.
That's an interesting question. I think there's an idyllic future that we're all pushing towards, and then there's maybe a more realistic version of where I
Hmm.
think we're heading. I watched an interesting documentary the other couple of weeks back about a school in America that has basically been bought by Apple,
Yeah.
and they have a centralized computer that sits in the middle of the room. All the students are given an iPad.
Hmm.
They arrive to school roughly 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
It's not strict.
Yeah.
They have a seat. There's an area over there with beanbags. They put their lunch over there. There's a door that opens out to the playground, and it's open. And these students are, I think they're about age 10, between
Mm.
10 and sort of 12. And they sit there. They get their iPad out. The central computer works out what work they should be doing at the moment. It tailors the work to what level they're at. So if they are exceeding, then it pushes their knowledge. And if
Yeah.
they're struggling, then it makes the work a little bit easier to bring them back up. It sets all their homework. It sets, it decides what subjects they're doing. The student is completely in charge of their own time. So if they want to have a break and get a biscuit, they can go and get one. If they want to go outside and play football with their mates for 10 minutes, they can.
Mm.
There's no set, lunchtime, break time, that kind of thing. It's just, I watched it. There is a teacher in the room, and the teacher is there to help you face to face if you get stuck. But you are in charge of your own learning.
I saw a episode of The Simpsons where they covered something
Mhm.
very similar.
Yes, indeed.
But the reality is, funny enough, in higher education, you may remember a Indian music artist called Apache Indian.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's head of a school in Birmingham
Hmm.
for education for music,
Yep.
completely state funded. Sorry, not state funded, completely privately funded from
Okay.
different record labels to produce the next artists, sound engineers, and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Because that's not taught in schools.
No.
So as that's not taught in schools, he provided the gaps that would help with their, the education. And I
Yeah.
think, our general education system here, it, for me to become a mortgage advisor, I had to do a separate qualification.
Yes.
That's not taught in schools.
No.
So self-learning, all the other bits and pieces. I think this is preparing people for that world of work as well.
Yeah. No.
It's a good
I
skill.
I agree with you. I've been arguing for a really long time. Again, these are my own personal views, so don't necessarily reflect on my
No,
profession. But um, I've always said for a really long time that exams are not necessarily the best way of testing a student.
yeah, I agree with that.
So if you look at any field of work, pick one. I really don't mind.
Mm.
Um, and you look at what they do on a day to day and what they deliver and what they are actually there for. So, if we took, for example, I don't know, your job, Hattie, as a mortgage advisor kind of role, that kind of thing, right? If you look at your role, what you deliver on a day to day, if you didn't know what you were doing, you would look it up, you would research it, you would find a source of information where you could gather more knowledge on that, and then you would develop that and then deliver it, right? In terms of whatever role it is you actually do on that particular day. If you look at a student, we should really be designing them for that. At the moment, an exam tests your knowledge, which is really a test of your recall or your memory, right? So if I take a history exam, if I take a geography exam, if I take a maths and English exam, it's all really a sort of recapturing of what I've already stored in my head. So if I can remember that the Battle of Hastings was in a particular date, I can write that down and I will get a mark for that. Fantastic. I've remembered something, I get 1 mark. Brilliant. Okay. The reality of what I think we should be doing is going, here's I don't know, a case study, something like that for your subject. Here's a computer with Google on it. Browse the internet, look it all up, find as much information as you can, and then compose your own answer. Answer the question I've asked for using comprehension that you are able to understand. So it doesn't test your ability to remember something, it tests your ability to understand it. And that's the key thing that you would use in a field of work in any environment. Brilliant, I am a builder. Okay, great. I'm going to be building something I've never built before. Now, I've not been taught this at school, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brain, I'm going to look it up, I'm going to go and ask my mate who also knows how to build this thing, and we're going to come up with it together and we come up with a plan. Great. That is being resourceful using knowledge, right? Knowledge, but it's not memory. It doesn't always have to be memory. Memory doesn't have to be the be all and end all. If you test a student's memory, you're going to have a student that remembers more and a student who remembers less.
Exactly.
That does not make them any better or worse of a student. I want students that are able to manipulate knowledge, to develop it, to actively seek it out, and then use it. Like understand it and use it. That's the real skill. So I've always said for a long time, I think exams should be more centered around, in principle, the idea of students using knowledge that they can find and resource rather than just memory.
Well, even memory techniques. There's various different memory techniques that are out there, because the traditional rope technique, read and try and commit to your memory, read over and over and over again, doesn't work for everyone. Like I stated before, I'm a kinetic based learner.
Yeah.
So unless I'm physically moving or putting some kind of emotion or something that is going to be able to cement it to my mind, it will never go in. It will never happen. So whenever I'm personally learning, I'm reading something, reading it aloud, jumping up and down, and creating motion. Weird, I know, but it works.
Don't worry, you're by no means the only person that's ever said that to me, Hadi.
And again, I mean, it's interesting seeing all of that, because I think the academic side of things for a long period of time has said this is the right way because it's the only way.
Yes.
It's the only way we're going to teach it, and that's what's going to be happening. It's when you get out of the academic world, when grades really don't matter, and what does matter is your ability to apply the knowledge.
Yes.
Hence why you get the qualifications.
Absolutely.
That's where people start coming out and thinking, oh my God, I wasted all that time. I wasn't a failure. I just didn't know how to actually learn it because the subjects weren't there to appeal to my way of thinking.
Yes.
And I've seen that with quite a few different people. How many people we met that wanted to become, I don't know, a scientist, but went completely the different way. They went into the arts because that was what appealed to them. We've seen with people who wanted to do, I don't know, PE, but went into law.
Yeah.
Because that appealed to them more. The good thing about general education is that it does help give a bit more of a, right, look, this is the wider area, and I can start narrowing it down when I get older and older. And there's more vocational qualifications which are coming out now, which I think is really good, because before, and it's on a modular basis. Although I don't personally agree with the baccalaureate system.
Sure.
That because I wasn't raised on the baccalaureate. I was raised on the old traditional GCSEs, which included coursework and didn't rely on an exam right at the end.
No.
Whereas now it's an exam right at the end.
And that's your lot.
That was the old way of doing things in the old O-level days, and that didn't work.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, a best example I can give you that fits the purpose of what I'm trying to explain, and I think it's identical to the same point you're making, is if I asked you right now, Hadi, on the spot, I'm going to put you on the spot, and ask you to do some simultaneous equations for me, I think you might find that quite tough.
I won't be able to.
You wouldn't be able to do it. right?
My mental arithmetic was terrible to begin with.
Perfect. There we go. Let's go with that. Okay. So if I asked you to do some simultaneous equations, which I believe is sort of year 8, year 9 maths, roughly. So that's sort of 12, 13-year-old child's maths, right? You wouldn't be able to do it. Now, if I compare that to a student that I taught it to 2 weeks ago, they would reel it off no problem. Yes, simultaneous equations, tick, tick, tick. Does that mean that that student who would get a decent grade if they did GCSE maths right now is more intelligent by qualification alone than you?
No.
Now, personally, I would say no, right? Because part of growing and learning is all about picking up new skills, right? So I can guarantee you, Hadi, at no point at school were you ever taught how to do a Facebook Live broadcast. But here you are doing one because it works for you in your business and it works for you in terms of your networking. And that is really useful. And it's a skill that you've learnt, right? Whereas the fact that you can't do a simultaneous equation does not necessarily mean that because you would get a poorer grade than an 8-year-old, year 8 student at maths, it bears no relevance. It's the fact that you can't remember it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just that memory again. It's just memory. And our memory depreciates over time anyway. So you're going to forget this stuff. How much of it do we realistically use, depending on which subjects you take forward to actually your field of work? The number of times endless that I hear of students that have done a degree in whatever, and then the job that they work in is not even similar to that degree whatsoever.
Yeah. Advertisers, the best ones. Marketing.
All the time. You know,
I had a degree in this and it fell into marketing.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, great for you. I mean, it's endless. It's endless. There's no fit for purpose. You know, it doesn't. There's no collective, all-seeing, all-dancing exam that would ever test any of these things. I think the reality is, as you say, it's an applied knowledge is really what we should be testing. How do you resource information if you need it? These are all skills that people should be taking away into the field of work. They can specialize when they're 19, 20, 21, or even 25, 50. It doesn't matter. You can re-specialize whenever you want. It's just about developing those skills and how you use them, I think, is the way forward.
Yeah, and we shouldn't punish people for working cooperatively. You know, we're taught in the exams that if you try and open source or research, you're cheating.
You're cheating.
Because it should be in your mind.
Yeah.
But you can only retain a certain amount of information. And Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad said the same thing. In the real world, when you go into the world of work, you're going to be cooperating with a lot of people. You're going to be researching because you can't retain all the information straight away. You know, chefs, best example. They don't retain all the information in their head. They have recipe books.
Hadi, if you look at any job or any example where there's a required amount of intelligence that would be seen as high, you know, you have a high IQ. Say you're a scientist or something like that, right? You're mixing a new formula for, I don't know, a coronavirus, let's say, vaccine, right? Yeah. If you read on a book over there 2 minutes ago that you need to put 3 drops in, I can guarantee you, if I was doing it, I would pick up that book and I would take it over to where I need to do it, and I would look 3 drops, yeah, perfect, 3. Would I try and remember? Oh, it's 3 drops of that and 5 drops of this and 6. No, I would. It's so important. It's crucial that I have that information in front of me, and then I apply it by actually putting the drops in myself. Cool, no problem. But I wouldn't just try and, I'm just going to stick it in my mind. It's 3 drops of this and then 4 iodine and then 9 of this. No, you never do that. And I don't think you would either. In your environment of your field of work or whatever, you would take what you've got and go, yeah, I know how to make it. Fantastic, I've learned that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my knowledge by going, yeah, I'm going to read this book and go, yeah, 3 of them and 4 of that. Perfect. There you go, I've made it.
Well, you know, we've got 15 minutes left, and for the record, for everyone, I actually wanted to become a teacher myself. When I got my university degree and all the rest of that, but I couldn't get into the PGCE course because I didn't have maths as a GCSE. Tried it 4 times. The highest grade I got was an E. And yeah, I'm a mortgage advisor. That says something.
You work okay. Services.
Okay, so guys, if you've got any kind of questions or comments, if you're enjoying this, please hit that like button, hit that love button. We love the fact that we've been getting so much love from you guys. In the meantime, I'm just going to go through some of the comments which have been put on here. So we had Ben Walker. Actually, we had Big Ben McWinston. Thank you for joining us, Big Ben. He agreed with us 100%. Ben Walker, someone has to like you that started laughing. This is in response to the hi
I think
guys.
it's you saying you like yourself, Andy.
Oh dear, well, yeah. Anyway. I had Chris Collin, YouTuber as well, and Twitcher. I think that's what they called him. But he's doing a lot more on Twitch work as well. The Tycoon isn't the gimmick; it's his real self. We've had quite a few people join in watching. Thank you guys. We appreciate all the love and support that you give. Chris also commented, would love to see Harry versus the Tycoon. I'm not sure who Harry is.
No idea. I don't know what you're talking about.
And you put down 1 versus 1 as well. So obviously, that relates to something that we do outside as well, which, I've mentioned a couple of times, being involved in the British professional wrestling circuit.
Yep.
And, Josh was also involved, when events were taking place. Josh had an active role within the professional wrestling circuit too, and brought in many of his teaching skills from PE into professional wrestling education, which ultimately helped to benefit many people as well. Less injuries and that kind of stuff. So would you like to, explain, elaborate a little bit more about your time in the professional wrestling industry as well?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I mean, just before we went live, I'm very happy to admit that Hadi and I had a little catch up about wrestling. It's an odd industry. I always saw it as a hobby, if I'm being absolutely honest. I know that will grind on some of the real core professional wrestlers' sort of inner hatred for us hobbyists. But yeah, no, I had a real life. I have a real career. I'm a professional, so from that side of it, it was a hobby for me. But not really enjoyed it. Had a really good time. It's something I enjoyed since I used to watch it as a kid, and I thought, you know what, there's a local school to me. I'll give it a go. So I went down and had a go. I absolutely hated it for probably the first 4 months. I think despised it. Hated how I felt the next day at work. It hurts. There's not. I mean, fake wrestling, as some people call it. No. I mean, there's nothing fake about it, especially not the training. Especially when, I don't know about your experiences, Hadi, but a number of the schools I've been to and sessions and seminars and things like that, it's often budget, should we say? We'll go with budget. So I think when I first started learning how to take what's in professional wrestling is called a bump, i.e., you learn to fall down. Which feels weirdly unnatural in itself anyway. I remember first starting to practice that in a boxing ring, which I don't know if you've ever bumped in a boxing ring, have you?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, there's no give on that.
No give.
You may as well bounce on the floor, if I'm being absolutely honest with you. So yeah, that was an enjoyable sufferance for the first 3 or 4 months of learning. But no, since then, I've enjoyed wrestling under a gimmick character, sort of lovable superhero, and throwing people around and getting thrown around, and it's all good fun. I had an enjoyable time. You meet some interesting characters, some different people, some people that I probably wouldn't have met from a sort of professional environment, but at the same time, I've got on with them really well. They made some really, really strong friends, yourself included, Hadi, of course.
Thank you.
And no, it's been an enjoyable hobby. I think during this coronavirus period, I think it's gonna be really hurt the British wrestling scene. I think a lot of shows and schools and things have obviously been shut, and it's going to be a struggle for some of them to sort of regrow from where they are now. And I think a lot of people have distanced themselves from things like that just to sort of sort themselves out, because it does feel like a time where you should really focus on yourself rather than trying to put on a show that won't happen because it's lockdown. But it's nice to see some of the people that I started with doing so well. It's nice to see some of the promotions that I've wrestled for are still putting out some great stuff. And I wish anyone that's still doing professional wrestling every success. I mean, I wouldn't say I would wrestle again if I was asked, because I would imagine I would probably need months of getting back into it. But I could see myself doing some refereeing or helping out around the show, switching the lights on and off, that kind of thing. I'm very happy. I really enjoy being involved, but I don't necessarily enjoy how it feels from the wrestling side, at least.
I think people tend to forget that, from my perspective, and I know this is going to grind a lot of gears as well, that there is a lot more that goes on into putting a show than just the show itself.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of logistic work that needs to be done. There's a lot of prep. There's more things that are going on back behind the scenes too. And sometimes the real drama isn't what you see in front in the
No.
ring. It's the real, some of the stories that we've both had and shared has been
There's been some stories.
yeah, and I think we could explore that in the future. But in the meantime, for me, when I was doing, the training, the initial training, yeah, again, having a little bit of experience in judo, breaking falls, and all the rest of that kind of stuff, and
Martial arts background, don't you?
yeah, all the martial arts backgrounds I had as well, the other martial arts too. It was good to see, be able to apply all of that kind of stuff. The fitness and training levels really good from whichever school you was at. Again, is the whole politics that goes on, which we've already had. One of my guests said that there's way too much politics compared to the other things that he was involved in, which is like boxing, where there was very little politics.
Yes.
You just put on the show, it's all done. People sell the tickets. The politics is intense, and we've seen a lot of fallouts from it.
Yeah. No. I mean, I totally agree with you. All of those points. There is far too much politics in wrestling, but then I think that the issue is distance. I think people, if I was in EastEnders, right? Let's say I was an actor, and I had a part in EastEnders, and unfortunately, the director comes to me one day and says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but the next 6 months, your character is going to become a drug addict, and then at the end of that, they will overdose and die." Well, that's really unfortunate, but I play a character who, in a show, that's happening to them. That's my job. My job is to portray the character. As far as I always saw myself in wrestling and how that relates to it, is I played a character. I am not whatever promotion is I'm wrestling on, whatever show I am on, that show is separate. The show is its own thing, and I am just one little cog in a much far bigger system of wheels. And as far as I'm concerned, if my character does really well and wins, if my character does really badly and loses, if I get beaten up loads, if I win and beat them up loads, if I win a championship gold belt thing, then great. If I don't, then also great. I just liked going out there and having a good time and putting on a performance and getting to wrestle. I think a lot of people relate, because a lot of people use their real name as their character or something similar, and they genuinely believe that the successes of their wrestling is them. Like, I've won the championship. It's me. No, it's not. No, it's really not. It's the promoter over there who decided probably a couple of months ago that your character deserved it, not you.
We've all seen it.
And that's why people get bitty about it. It's unfortunate. But it does drive people out, and I think that's the real shame. Is that there's some really great people in British wrestling, as well as some not so great. But predominantly, I would say is mainly great people, and it's just a shame that some of them suffer at the hands of these people that just constantly go on about, oh, well, this is the way it should be done. I should be winning. I should be losing. I should be this. So selfish. There's no need for it. I mean, I'm not going to name drop because
no need to.
not that kind of environment, but I will highlight a promotion that I think is doing great things at the moment, which I don't know if you know them really well, Hadi. I know you've worked with them a lot. Is UKPW?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of their stuff coming out recently. It looks great. I'm interested and excited to see what sort of the future holds for them as a real beacon of sort of the level. I don't want to, again, I'm not putting people down or putting people up, but I would say the level that we were sort of at, and where a lot of the people that we interact with were wrestling at, and sort of UKPW is around that level, and I think they're doing some fantastic work. Really excited for the stuff they've been putting out recently. As I say, it's a highlight because there's been some sticky situations recently for promotions and people and stuff, and it's just nice to see someone coming out of it doing so well. And again, I know a lot of the guys at UKPW, and they're all fantastic people, and it's just nice. It's a nice thing.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is the same with the schools. Like what you said before, when the first lockdown happened, everything shut down, apart from the schools and supermarkets and the hospitals. Social work as well didn't stop.
Yep.
None of that sort of stuff stopped. The essential services carried on working, and I think for that period of time, we were the heroes.
Yeah.
Now that seems to have disappeared. And I think it's going to take a bit of time to remind people that the work that everyone does, whether it's professional wrestling, whether it's teaching, whether it's a delivery driver taking shopping to a vulnerable person's home, delivering to the elderly, those kind of things,
Yep.
you know, they're putting themselves in harm's way.
Yeah, they are.
Make sure, especially with things like coronavirus.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening with teachers. If teachers have had to drop down because of coronavirus in terms of the numbers of teachers, or if they're still carrying on because they can work from home. But having said all of that, I personally thank you and all of the people who are within the education sector to make sure that the children are being given the best education that can be given. So thank you for that. Even those who don't come from, how can I put this, stable, socially nice environments where there is abuse, because let's face it, the world isn't perfect. There is a lot of things which are out there which are not nice. But
Yeah.
you guys are on the how can I put this? You're at the blunt end of it all.
Wow.
So, thank
I
you
mean,
for
I,
what
can,
you
I
guys do.
cannot, I can't accept a personal thanks, but certainly as a profession, no, I do totally take on board all your points. Teachers work really hard, endlessly. I know I'm biased, but they do. They work really, really hard, and it's nice to see that people are recognizing that now during this period where essential workers is a thrown about phrase, and teachers they're essential. They're essential, and yeah, I think they deserve a little bit more relief from media attacks, but at the same time, the media attacks anyone for whatever, and
Well, the right-wing media, definitely.
yeah,
The
but it's
Kate
nice to
Hopkins
see.
of the world, and
Yeah, it's just nice to see that the people on the ground understand what teachers and support staff and anyone that works in the educational sector actually does and does for their kids.
right. So we got 4 more minutes, guys. If you want to add something, because Chris has actually added something in,
Cool.
following on from the rest of the point, which is, will the Tycoon, my character, face against Scoutman? He didn't, obviously predictive text. Will the Tycoon face against Scoutman in a wrestling match? Give the people what they want.
Wow, that is.
Again, based upon what we've got going on right now, I'm not going to answer this as a tycoon or anything like that, because let's face it, we're in a pandemic situation and everything's still locked down. So maybe in the future, yes, why not? I will train for it to run away.
Who knows? Who knows?
I will train hard to run away.
I was going to say, Hadi, it's not a fight you want, if I'm being genuinely honest with you. I don't think so. It's not going to end well for you. It's really not.
Well, I mean, we had in one lifetime, we had one wrestler bring out someone else to represent them, in the ring to face a champion. So, me being the manager, I'll have to find the next best thing out there.
I'm up for that.
Yeah.
But see who you've got in your little rank of people that you can bring out, Hadi. I'll take any of them.
I don't know right now. I don't know if they got coronavirus or not.
Oh no! Mask on match.
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is, like, we all know, and again, this goes out to anyone that is within the events industry, the hospitality industry, anyone who's been affected by the lockdown and the effects that coronavirus has given. We love you guys, and we know what you're going through. I've always talked about things like bounce back loans, talked about things like CBILS, coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. They're still available for you guys. So, if you need access to that kind of help to make sure the bills are paid and your staff are paid, please feel free, contact me. In the meantime, tomorrow, Josh, thank you again for everything. Thank you for being on here. Tomorrow, my Facebook Live at 7 o'clock in the evening is going to be about the BRRR method when it comes to property investment. What is it? Why is it so important that this method is out there? Funny enough, you all know what this method is, just not sure how to do it. So if you're looking at property investment, how to get into it, why are you going to be looking at the BRRR method or BRRR? There's a fourth R as well. So tune in tomorrow. I look forward to you guys being here. Josh, thanks for everything, buddy. Oh, Chris said one more thing. Josh, what is your favorite moment in wrestling you've experienced? You got?
Oh, how long have I got to answer? 30 seconds.
Go on, you have another 2 minutes.
Genuinely, I would say a highlight was favorite moment. You know what? A favorite moment is ending Alexander Roth's unpinned and unsubmitted streak at British Extreme Championship Wrestling. And on a side note, Chris, is any of the many times I've beaten you. Any of the list is endless. I've thrown you off the top rope. I've thrown you out of rumbles. I've thrown you about just
Big boot.
yeah. I mean,
I admit the flexibility was really good there because
I
Chris
appreciate
is a
that.
tall guy.
You know what? He deserved it, and that's why I managed to get my foot all the way up there to kick him right in the grill. But you know what? Some people bring it upon themselves, Hadi. Some people can't be helped. He's decided to come in here and write. What's your favorite wrestling moment? My character is a lovely, very friendly, and a nice guy. Unfortunately, me in reality, I couldn't agree with that. So any time I've hit you with anything, Chris, I'm sure I remember headbutting you in the chest once. That sticks in my mind. That was a highlight. I remember giving you a flag break off the top rope. That was enjoyable. Any of those, Chris, you can choose. It's all up to you.
And if you do want to see what he's actually talking about, I think there's a YouTube channel for it as well. Feel free to look into that. But guys, everyone who's been here, thank you so much for being part of this. If you're a parent who's watching this and had any kind of concerns about your child's education, please, I hope that your mind's been put at rest, because you know that these teachers are going out of their way to make sure that your children are going to be given the best education they can possibly get in the current circumstances. So Josh, thank you so much for doing this. Guys, again, tomorrow, make sure you tune in with Facebook Live. Let's get you guys out there investing right now. Is the best time to invest in property. If you don't know why, then you need to definitely cash it tomorrow. See you guys there. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.
Bye.